Hello everyone. Now we're going to continue with the more practical part after the theory that we just saw before about the packages and different concepts and how and why things are done. So now let's go and see a little bit more about how to do that in R. Currently we're using the RStudio interface, and I think that you already know it a little bit, so I'm not going to continue explaining too much about it, how it works. So the first step is to upload the packages. So let's use the packages. You can run each one of the lines here with the run button, or and then you press enter. And these are some messages telling us that everything's okay. And the first step after uploading the packages is to read the data, and they're located in this CSV file. So let's run it, and you can see that we obtain in this box called environment my crop data. We have 804 observations and 7 variables. And if you also want to see the table, you can click on it to do so. These are the variables that we have and the different observations, and you can see the whole table here. But also with the code, we can use the print function in order to print the data. And it's not so user-friendly because not everything fits here. So a better option for visualizing this is to transform the data for this command. That's also part of this package. So when we use the print function, I already have all the columns, and we have also part of the rows, and it tells us that there are 794 additional cells. So these just makes a lot easier to understand and visualize data that we have. Another option that I'm going to eventually use, it's called Glimpse. And this allows us to see a transposed visualization of the data. So right here I have the columns. They are in each one of the rows, and I have some of the observations on the right. So this is very useful when I have a very large amount of columns that do not fit in the screen. So by using the glimpse function, we can have a better visualization to see how many columns I have. And it's more practical. And finally, another important thing that can be useful for you are the help functions, ayuda. So whenever you need more about a function, about an argument, or whatever else you need, you can use the question mark. Begin the line with a question mark, and this will show me the options that are related to this function. In this case, for example, the filter function is in 2 different packages, the dplyr package that we're using, but also in the stats package, which is a database package. So in this case, the one that we need is the dplyr package. So I'm going to select it, and this will show me the whole description, the arguments that you have to the arguments that are used, what are the results, and these are some criteria that can be used also. And finally, you can go all the way down to some examples that are very useful generally. Another way to use this, when I want to specify a function of which filter it comes from, I can use these symbols. And here I'm going to tell R that I want the filter function from the dplyr package. So I run help. You can see that it opens on the right. And this is a very useful way to program whenever you're writing a package or whenever you have a conflict of a function that I don't want to load a whole package just to use one function, because that could generate a conflict. So I can use this option, and it won't be necessary to upload the whole package. This is just for you to bear in mind. So let's continue with the functions that we were showing before. during the theoretical part. And the first function is the filter function to filter both rows. We have the crop data that we already saw before, and I am going to do the filter by choosing the rows that have yield above 8. So if I run it here, it's going to tell us that there's 800 lines. We had 800 lines, now I have only 5 lines. Everything that's over 8 in yield. I can also combine the conditions by using the comma. This tells us that I want to filter my data focusing on yield whenever it's above 8, and my sewing method would be mechanized. So I run it here, and you can see that the ones that are manual were removed, and I only have 3 different observations. I can also use the end icon by combining the condition, and this allows us to have more flexibility. This one would be yield and sewing method, but it could be additional ones if you like the ones that we have here in useful filter functions. You have the options of what you can use. I have these icons and options, exclamation mark, between, that will be between one value and the other. So there are other useful filter functions that can be used to create the condition that you would prefer and to choose filtering the rows that you're interested in. So let's continue with the arrange function. This one would be to organize the data based on values in a column. You can see that I began with the smaller yield that increases. This will go from the smaller number to the larger number, but you can also use the function descending in order to invert. So you'll begin with the highest value. You can also use more than one column as a criterion whenever you want to get some information. So for example, the sewing method is the same always. It's going to be organized here. That would be the manual sewing method. Also the decreasing yield, and also the mechanized method. And you can combine it with other columns here.